A group of Capitol Police are now suing Donald Trump, among others, for what is believed to be participation in an instigation towards the events that happened on the January 6th. They say that they conspired to violently overturn the results of the 2020 election. So it's Trump, it's pro-Trump militias, it's other sort of sundry associates of them in social media and QAnon circles and a bunch of people. But the suit was filed yesterday in US District Court in Washington by the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. Contends that Trump and his allies violated the Ku Klux Klan Act and DC law by scheming to block Congress from certifying Joe Biden's win. Let's give you a little bit from the lawsuit. They say plaintiffs and their fellow law enforcement officers risked their lives to defend the Capitol from a violent mass attack, an attack provoked, aided, and joined by defendants in an unlawful effort to use force, intimidation, and threats to prevent Congress from certifying the results of the 2020 presidential election. And because of those actions, plaintiffs were violently assaulted, spat on, tear gassed, bear sprayed, subjected to racial slurs and epithets, and put in fear for their lives. Plaintiffs' injuries, which defendants caused, persist to this day. And of course, some have died as a result of that. And so that includes a lot of people we mentioned on yesterday's show, like Roger Stone, people involved with the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, others involved with Stop the Steal. I mean, Brett, like I don't know to what extent any of those individuals, like on a case-by-case basis, can be tied to it, but it clearly was the objective of those groups to stop the certification. They could not have made that more clear.
Yeah, this is just one of the. So this is a civil suit. This is a lower, lower standard, I guess, for culpability, and frequently results in kind of restitution. And this is separate from a criminal investigation that's happening from the Department of Justice, which Trump is hilariously trying to dodge by saying he's going to invoke executive privilege, even though he's no longer the executive. So they don't get documents. But in this situation, yeah, this is the most sweeping of them all. This really gets everybody. Like I skimmed, I guess, the actual lawsuit. It has like tweets and timelines, and it gets us to kind of say, all right. And I think it's a fantastic exercise. I don't think he's going to be held financially responsible because he's never been held financially responsible for pretty much anything. But it gets us to say, all right, when you are telling people essentially to do all of this stuff, when you as the president, and as they're saying things like there's people in the House of Representatives who are besmirch. I mean, you tweeted this thing, Tucker Carlson saying, I can't believe that you're besmirching the House of Representatives, Eric Swalwell, by saying you're looking for female staffers. At the same time, Trump is the president of the United States saying, let's not certify the election, which is right and certified,
Yeah.
When not even your roll boy Mike Pence is going to listen to you. But he's saying all that. At what point do we say that is wildly illegal and essentially treason? And I'd like people to be on the record saying what they think is treason, because so many of the things that they call out folks for from the right, calling people out on the left as treasonous acts that should get them executed. Like, what is this? What is this when you're saying like don't certify democracy? Instead, just complain about it. And that's like such, and I say this time and time again on your show, like the ridiculousness of dictators. It's weird. That's a tool that they use. They make it so over the top and weird that you're no longer like having a conversation. They don't let you have one. They just are weird at you. And they get so huge, and it's all about this rhetoric that they just no longer are moored in reality. That's the point, because then it's like you're trying to push something and the floor's greased. You just don't have any, you can't get any traction because there's no rhetorical footing to be had in this bizarro, world that doesn't obey the laws of physics or reasoned debate.
Yeah, but and they train their own base to have no expectations whatsoever for consistency or logic, attachment to the values they say they have. They just are along for the ride at a certain point. They sort of start taking the rest of us along with them. Okay, so we'll see as that proceeds, but let's move on to something else. Yesterday, the police officer who shot Ashli Babbit on January 6th was interviewed on NBC, and we want to give you a portion of that. Here's a bit.
My name is Michael Bird, I'm a lieutenant for the United States Capitol Police.
For months, he has lived in hiding, he says, over this moment. His decision to use deadly force against a rioter as she climbed through a barricaded door that leads to the House chamber. In the months since, he's been the target of threats. Can you give us the nature of some of those threats?
They talked about, killing me, cutting off my head, very vicious and cruel things.
Racist things?
There were some racist attacks as well. It's all disheartening because I know I was doing my job.
Given the nature of the threats that you describe, do you have any concern about showing your face and identifying yourself?
Of course I do. That is a very vital point, and it's something that is frightening. I believe I showed the utmost courage on January 6th, and it's time for me to do that now.
So, look, Brett, we talked yesterday on the show about some of the issues I had with the interview. I don't like as justified as that individual shooting might have been, and we only have some details about it. I don't like the national, ready acceptance of police violence. So I was worried that it would play into that, but also. He is, I'm sure, facing as many death threats as anyone has in some time, and will probably face those for the rest of his life. We speculated about why they decided to do this interview now. It seemed as if it might be trying to get out in front of him being identified by someone on the right wing. They said he's gotten these threats already, so it implies that some people did have his identity. What do you think about all of it?
I think in the immediate wake of this, they will intensify calls that this guy's a murderer and that she's a martyr. And the Al Qaeda out there need that. They need a martyr. And this same group that says that you should be able to shoot people, like the Kyle Rittenhouse is great, going out into the street and shooting and starting something. And then shooting people when they're like, get out of here. They're saying that this guy, who is the last line of defense against a crazy mob who has already broken a window against a door that is barricaded after they've made it inside the gates. The equivalent of the outer gate, the Abbey gate. They're inside the Kabul airport at this point. Going bloodthirstly, many of them yelling, "Where are you, Nancy?" What are they gonna do? They're saying, "Oh, just trust us, we're fine. We're just breaking and entering here." Saying, "Get her." This guy's like, "I need you to stop," told her. Police officer told her to stop. He was just standing his ground. Like by the reasonable logic of you're breaking and entering and you're threatening lawmakers. And the crazy, bizarro logic that they foist on us all the time in every other situation involving a group of demonstrators, give them the benefit of the doubt. In every one of those versions of logic, she's not a martyr. She's a terrorist. She's a criminal. And I hate that she died. I hate everything that led her to be radicalized as a terrorist, to storm the Capitol building in the United States, in the DC Capitol building. But she's a bad guy, and she was shot by someone who you all say is a good guy. Typically, if it wasn't a red hat behind her pushing her through a window.
Yeah, they're a bit more choosy about the cops these days. Ever since they figured out how fun it is to try to beat them to death with flags. Yeah, I don't even like I said yesterday, I don't even like this conversation that we have to have because I don't want cops to shoot people, justified or not. I'm not interested in it. But that said, you are trying, and it's a great attempt to get through to these people and get them to be consistent when these people think that I don't know what should have happened, that the cop should have just allowed the crowd to go in, kill the representatives, tear him limb from limb. I don't know. But these are the same people that think that George Floyd had it coming. Like that was a justified killing of him when he's literally laying down, unable to move. There is it's not just that it's hypocritical or just that it's not consistent. It is miles past that at this point. There are no standards whatsoever. And so that cop is going to have to fear for his life for the rest of his life, because the president is the former president has been involved in trying to demonize and fear mongering about this guy, talking about him being a part of Mike Pence's security detail and all that. Those who are going to run for president in a few years are probably still going to be holding her up as a martyr and using this guy as a villain. His face is going to be on T-shirts. I mean, God only knows for the rest of his life. It was a terrible incident. I wish that it hadn't happened. It didn't need to. If the right wing hadn't driven so many people insane, I don't like any of it, and I'm worried about what comes next. I'm worried about what Fox is going to be saying about this individual now that they know. And the fact that he turned out to be a black cop is just going to make it so much worse, because they're going to find it even more appealing if that was possible.
That exact thing that you're talking about bore out in Texas. That's going to be on the Young Turks later on today, where just like there, it's this you're crying racism thing. You're crying racism. Don't do it. There was a lawmaker who said that they were like, don't say racism on the floor during this debate about voting rights in Texas. She said racism.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.